In just one game, the Knicks have turned the tide of this series back firmly in their favor. Things just did not look good for Atlanta from the jump tonight. The Knicks got Towns going early as a massive step towards maximizing offense for the Knicks. We saw him end up with his first playoff triple-double. That's another thing that the Hawks simply can't allow. Cat is not a phenomenal playmaker, but if you give him the opportunity, he's going to make those easy reads on offense. The Hawks have to do a better job of clamping down on defense. The Knicks aren't often going to run the offense through Cat in that way, but with no Brunson on the floor for more time tonight than we usually see, that was a role he had to step up and fill in. He did a great job at that, and Atlanta just has to be better about limiting his ability to do that should the need come up in the future. Right from the opening tip, we saw the Knicks living inside early, and the Hawks really just did not have an answer. The Hawks are a bit of an undersized team. They do have to rely on their offensive production because they will not be winning games off of defense alone. We saw that tonight. They couldn't get the offense going, so their defense really wasn't able to do anything to stop the flow of the Knicks offense. They do have to try to be better at protecting the paint, as much as it is difficult for them because they simply don't have the personnel to really effectively do it. Okongwu and Mo Gay are both decent rim protectors, but if they're matching up against Cat and he's really being aggressive, he is going to be able to get mostly whatever he wants. And even guys like OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, cutting to the rim, I don't think that the Hawks have a great way of stopping that, so that is a big concern for Atlanta moving forward. This was the first game of the series that the Knicks bench finally showed up, and not only did they show up, they actually outperformed Atlanta's bench. I'm not sure if the numbers support that in terms of points, but you could definitely feel the impact of the Knicks bench. They got more from their bench than they had all series long by a long shot, and the Hawks bench really could not get anything concrete going. That is going to be a big difference maker. I don't expect the Knicks bench to continue to outperform them, but as long as they can even keep it close to the production of Atlanta's bench, the Knicks should be in great shape. First half for the Hawks was just horrific. Shooting wise, everything on offense was too easy for the Knicks, and Atlanta couldn't get any of the easy buckets they'd been finding these past two games. That ultimately accounted for the big deficit at halftime, and then heading into the second half, the Knicks weathered the initial Hawks burst out of half and turned it into a run of their own, even with no Jalen Brunson to run their offense through. A lot of good shots for Atlanta, just were not falling tonight. But they also took a lot of bad shots and had some very sloppy and inconsistent play with plenty of turnovers, which you simply cannot afford against a Knicks team desperate for a win. It is quite concerning for Atlanta that neither of their losses has even been remotely close, and both of their wins have only been by a single point. That doesn't at all bode well for these next two games, which could be the last two as well if Atlanta isn't able to get back to playing up-tempo basketball and force the Knicks into tough spots in transition, as New York just completely stymied that part of the Hawks game tonight. And a lot of that stems from Jalen Johnson still not really finding his way in this series, even though he's getting some decent numbers up, is really just not the Jalen Johnson that we saw in the regular season. The Knicks have neutralized him for the most part, which is simply not something Atlanta can afford. I would love to see him get going early on in Game 5. That would just open things up for Atlanta, help them maintain that fast style of play that has allowed them to take two games off the Knicks. 98 points on 41% shooting and 24% from deep is just never going to cut it. Ultimately, the Hawks do simply just need to find a form of more consistent offense next game, and I do truly believe that the answer lies in dictating the pace of play and running the Knicks off the floor. If they can do their best to never let New York get settled and keep them uncomfortable from start to finish, they do stand a chance of stealing another game at MSG. If not, this run may be coming to an end sooner than I like to see. If the Knicks go up 3-0, I don't think that they would squander an opportunity to put that series away in 6, even with it coming in Atlanta. The Knicks have been a pretty competent road team as of late, so I do think that come playoff time, they especially would lock that in and just end the series in 6 if given the opportunity. One of very few positives from tonight's game for Atlanta was that Nickeil Alexander-Walker may have finally unblocked himself from 3. He shot 5 for 10 from deep, and having that part of their offensive attack back with reliability would go a long way for the Hawks in keeping their hopes of winning this alive. They will need to see that or something similar in Game 5 from him. It's simply not going to be enough for them to squeak by like they did in Games 2 and 3. They will have to show up and be dominant. For the Knicks, they did just about everything they had to tonight and expose the Hawks' inexperience in spots like these. Atlanta wasn't supposed to be playing with a series lead at any point in this matchup, and they didn't know how to keep it, which New York exploited masterfully in a must-win game. They are now firmly back in control of this thing after tonight's blowout win, and with the game at MSG ahead of them. I hate to say it, but I am starting to doubt the Hawks for the first time in this series. A double-digit loss in Game 1 is forgivable, seeing as it's the first time most of these guys have seen the playoffs as starters. They're playing a very seasoned Knicks team, but that simply cannot happen twice in the same series, especially when their margins of victory have been so thin. I do still want to believe in Atlanta, but at this point, I think I have to go at Knicks in 6. But again, I think whoever wins Game 5 is going to come away with it. I do just ultimately think that that is going to be the Knicks' destiny.
That shot of the game belongs to Wallace. It's up, and the Knicks win by 16. Best of 7 is now a best of 3 as the Knicks